Battery, shunt, Peter inverter. I think we've got everything in place. And we have 66 amps outside. Guys, welcome back to another video here from the off-grid garage in not so sunny Australia at the moment. We have this terrible wind and these clouds for a couple of days now. It was pretty sunny yesterday, but today it's not solar weather. But hey, this channel slowly turns into a weather forecast channel because everyone is now posting their own weather situation locally. And honestly, I always wanted to know what weather it is in New York at end of March. So why not? So in today's video, we are going to do a further test with this sodium-ion battery, the 50 ampere hour battery. And you have seen I've already installed the smart shunt to measure the capacity we get out of this battery. And we also use the Peter inverter, the FCHAO Peter inverter. I'm still using this on a frequently base here on my property. It is usually connected to this, what is it? 175 amp Anderson connector. It plugs into this Müller 200 ampere hour camping style battery with all the connectors. And I'm running my 2.4 kilowatt chainsaw from it, wherever I am on the property. And this one is a total beast. It runs everywhere, it runs all the time. Look at all these scuffs and marks and dents here. There's dust from the chainsaw everywhere. Just keeps running. If you're looking for a standalone 12 volt, 24 or 48 volt inverter, I can only highly recommend the Peter inverter. I made a test video a while back, which I will link down below, as well as the product links where you can buy such an inverter. One of the best inverters I've ever tested. Well, and when I connected all this together now, I used the ceramic resistor here to pre-charge the capacitors inside the Peter inverter. And usually when I use them, I still get a bit of a spark when I connect the inverter to the battery. But this time I didn't. And then I found out the BMS is actually not working at all. And this must have been since we discharged the battery to almost 0 volts in the last video. And when I recharged it to all the way up to 100%, the BMS did not come back to life. So I really had to disconnect all the balance cables, had to reset the BMS. But now it's back online and it's working. It's all good. It just needed a bit of a reset after all this torture. Okay, firstly have a look at the BMS, which is now working again. It shows us 99% state of charge. I have recharged the battery to... Yeah, that was the last recharge test, which showed us this weird current graph. So fully charged back to 16 volts. And now voltage has come down to 15.7. We are still at 3.92 something volts with this cell. 3 millivolt deviation, so perfectly balanced. Actually, I have never seen the balancer turning on in this battery so far. That is quite interesting. And here the recommended operation voltage is from 9.2 volts all the way up to 15.6 volts. So now with 15.7 volts, that's all good. That's in the range. And let's fire up the inverter. See what's happening. Yep, turns on. Oh. Oh, no, it doesn't. It flashes and beeps. It says 15.8 volts. Let's see if I can turn on my load, which will be my power supply. No, it doesn't turn on. So it seems like the voltage is a bit too high for this inverter to actually start up. Yeah, if you buy a lithium iron phosphate battery with 100 ampere hours and you use one of these 12 volt inverters for it, you would expect you can use around 90% of the capacity. You don't want to discharge it all the way down to 0. But how much capacity can you actually use with a sodium battery? Because we know the voltage range of these sodium batteries is far higher than lithium iron phosphate. And the inverter may cut out at the top and at the bottom as well prematurely. So you can use only a certain portion in the middle of this battery. And this is then the usable capacity of the sodium battery and your inverter. And I want to test and find out how much that is. So accordingly to the specifications of this inverter, we can only use it between 10 and 15 volts. So we need to bring down this battery voltage here a bit so the inverter actually doesn't complain about a high voltage anymore. And I don't think leaving it on like this with the alarm running, it is actually drawing any power from the battery, or at least not very much. Alright, 12 volt light bulbs to the rescue. One over here, hang on. I don't want to use them all. No, there are only 2 connected at the moment, so it should be fine. Wow, that is bright. Okay, voltage is coming down. Still complaining. Do it again. These cables are getting warm now. These light bulbs are not made for discharging a 12-volt battery. These are only for single cells. Okay, I'm using quickly the EBC A20 tester here to discharge this 12-volt battery. And we discharge it to 12.4 volts. Want to see if the inverter already starts. Okay, on. Okay guys, I kept lowering the voltage now with the EBC tester. And at about 15.4 volts, the beeping stopped. And I think we can now turn on the Peter without having an overvoltage alarm anymore. There it is, 15.4 volts. Okay, let's turn the load off for a moment. So I had to discharge the battery by 0.8 ampere hours until we reach this 15.4 volts. Okay, this is very little capacity for a 50 ampere hour battery. That's fine. Okay, so let's start with the test. Reset. Yes. And also have to reset the battery to 100%. Synchronize to 100%. Okay, this is our 100% for the inverter. Consumed ampere hours 0.0. That's all fine. Turn on our load. Oh, no. We have an overvoltage protection again. Here it comes. Okay, it's all good. All working. Be careful with the current, because I'm going to dump this energy into my big battery. This one is only at 31% and 50 amps outside. I need every amp I can get, so why not? Okay, let's turn this one on. This one connects our battery to my terminals over there, where the power supply is connected to. And we start testing right now. Okay, this is 1 amp and we are pulling 6 amps from the battery. So I can increase this maybe to, let's do a 2 amp discharge. That is 10.7 amps from the battery. I really want to discharge this battery with 0.5 C, so that would be 25 amps. Is that correct? Yes, I think 4.5 here is 20 amps. Okay, we can go a little bit higher. 5 amps, 22, we can go a little bit higher. 6 amps. Yeah, it doesn't need to be 100% precise, but yeah, there we go. 25.5 amps from the 12-volt battery makes 5.7 into our 48-volt battery. Does it all make sense? Okay, we leave this running here until the inverter turns off, and then we have the low voltage disconnect value. Should be at around 10 volts. So let's see how much ampere hours we get out of this 50 ampere hour battery. So a 0.5 C discharge test would usually take around 2 hours, but we will use only a portion of this capacity. So I'll keep an eye on the voltage, and when we go below 11 volts, I'll turn on the camera again. Alright, so we have now reached the 12-volt battery voltage. And I can see here in the Smart Shunt app that our current has increased from 25 amps to over 30 amps. And because our load is constant here and the voltage have decreased, our current is obviously increasing. And this is already a disadvantage you can see with sodium batteries and the large voltage range we have, that when the voltage is decreasing, your current will increasing. So you need to factor this in when selecting the cables. Okay, my friends, we are now at 10.5 volts. We have a low voltage message or warning here, 45 degrees, and we are only pulling 340 watts. Look at this. This is all we are pulling from this battery. So let's have a look at the BMS. 34 ampere hours we are pulling, and this is because the voltage has dropped from 15.4 volts to under 11. Okay, all cells are still in balance. That's cool. Smart Shunt test says we are at 26% and we have pulled 36 ampere hours so far. What's now? Ah, this is just the fan. No, everything is good. Everything is still working. Just the fan turned off in the power supply. So we are still pulling 33 amps at 10.75 volts. Okay, let's see when the inverter turns off. Alright, so the inverter shows now 10.0 volts. The Smart Shunt still measures 10.25 volts. And of course there's a bit of voltage drop on these cables and connections here as well. But eventually the inverter decides when to turn off. Oh, which is right now. I could just hear the clicking. Okay, that's it. Voltage increases a bit again. That was it. Okay, so we have pulled 39.3 ampere hours from this battery. Okay, I'll turn this off here otherwise. The smart shunt claims we are at 20% state of charge. So this would mean we can use 80% of the available capacity of such a sodium battery with a 12-volt inverter. Let's have a look in the table which I made, where I linked the voltage to the state of charge, if this makes sense. So this is the table I've introduced in the last video, where I linked the battery voltage and the state of charge together in this table. So we have started our discharge test at 15.4 volts. This is when the inverter actually didn't complain anymore about the high voltage and started working. So this is at around 96%. And then we discharged the battery all the way down to 10.2 volts. This is what the smart shunt measured directly at the battery. And this is a capacity of around 24%. So we cannot use any of this remaining 24% in the battery. And we can also not use any of this remaining 4% at the top. So 24% at the bottom and 4% at the top makes 28%. And I have discharged this battery now with 35 amps, which is a fairly high current for this battery here. So if I would do the test again with 10 amps only, we would have a different result and use more of this capacity, of course. I assume it would come down to around 25%. And I think this gives us a good idea what we can expect of using our normal inverter with a sodium battery. So there will be 25 to 30% of the capacity which you cannot use with your inverter. And just for information purposes, this was also 0.5 kilowatt hours we have pulled from this battery. Okay, my friends, so far this test from today, the last test for a while with the sodium batteries. We are moving on to other stuff we have to do here in the off-grid garage. There will be one more video coming out on the weekend now, where we talk about, well, all the questions I couldn't answer myself, and I've asked the AI what information it has. So this will be a very interesting video. And as well, I will give you a verdict about the sodium batteries I have tested here and how I see the future of these batteries in the market. Okay guys, so far this video from today, testing the sodium battery with our inverter here, gives us a rough ballpark figure how much capacity we can actually use with our existing equipment and the sodium batteries. As always guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your amazing support, for all your generous donations. And until the next video coming out very soon guys, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye bye.